Serious, in the spirit of October, what's the creepiest or most paranormal experience that has happened to you? When I lived alone, I had a tiny studio flat on the top floor. I always locked my door and never answered it unless someone texted me to say they were coming. At night I was laying in bed. I had locked the door by then. I sleep with the lights off in my bedroom. All of a sudden when I'm laying there I hear footsteps coming from my front door. I kind of lay there frozen in panic because I'm all alone and I knew that I locked my door. The footsteps were getting louder as whatever it was coming closer. I didn't know what to do because there was only one way out and that was the front door. I looked up and I saw two very tall men in hats kinda looking down at me. I couldn't see their faces clearly but I could see they were looking at me. I don't know what happened afterwards because I woke up in the morning. I don't know if this was sleep paralysis or if it was real, but it was definitely very creepy. This wasn't particularly scary to me, but here goes. When I was 3 or 4, my family moved house to an old house. I remember waking up in the middle of the night to see a translucent figure standing by the door, wearing old-fashioned clothes. I wasn't scared because I didn't get the impression that this would spirit or whatever would hurt me. Years later I mentioned this, and my sister, who I shared a room with at the time, said she saw the same thing. Was just talking to my grandparents and aunt about this house they used to live in, back the 60-70s, one of those huge New England houses in the backwoods of Connecticut. So apparently my dad, my aunt, and grandmother all had these different events happen to them, some of the events experienced by more than one of them. They were all disturbing in their own ways, but the most disturbing story that they all experienced had to do with this upstairs room in the house where they would hear a baby crying at night. This would continue for a few nights afterward, and then one night there would suddenly be heavy footsteps going up the stairs, rushing towards the crying, then it would stop. Staying in a rural area in France, post-college, at a friend's house. Friends leave for the afternoon. I am at the house alone and hear a clear whistling noise from another area of the house. It was a high-low intentional whistle. I blew it off like I was hearing things, but later in my trip my friend brings up they hear a ghost whistling randomly in this house. I never believed in ghosts until then. Maybe Casper thought I was good-looking? Not sure if this counts as happened to me. When my niece was about 18 months old, she went a phase where she's super afraid of strangers. She's getting better. She'd lean into me, or her parents, and hid her face when she sees strangers. I was visiting another city with my sister and her family. While my sister and Bill was getting ready in their hotel room, I decided to bring my niece over to my room to play with her. My room is right next to the stairwell. While I was playing with my niece, I heard sounds of someone walking the stairs. Although the steps were pretty loud, I didn't think much of it. Then, all of a sudden, the sounds stopped. And then my niece all of a sudden leaned into me to hide her face, exactly what she would do if there's a stranger in the room. I was thinking, what? I immediately picked up my niece and went to my sister's room. Unfortunately, I still have to sleep in that room later that night. I have yet to tell my sister. Oh baby. Here we go. Okay, little backstory. I was born right after my grandmother died. I never knew her and would have liked the chance to. One night when I was about 12, I'm 15 now, I was in my bed late at night. I was thinking how I wish I could have met her. A large, bright green perfect circle of light on the wall next to me. The shades were closed. And even if they were, there's nothing near us that's green, and nothing the neighbors have either. I was so scared I almost peed. I fell asleep out of fear. And yes, I'm not lying. I'm completely 100% sure that this really happened to me, and I promise I'm not lying. If anyone has questions to try and fact check me, please do. So lately I've been getting deja vu. But it's not like I get a vision of it happening. Something will just happen and then I feel like I'm remembering it happening, and sometimes I see it happen again. There's time where I'm in a convo and it happens word for word with the visions after. There's time where I'm in a place and I remember it so vividly but I have never been there before. Whenever I call it out, my fam and friends just ignore and say it's just my brain. But it feels way more than just my brain. I get this weird feeling. I get confused and a dizzy feeling. Had dream that I got into a car accident. Woke up super disoriented. I literally had to tell myself that it did not happen and that my car was fine. About a week later, on my way home from school, I got into the exact accident I had in my dream. This alone creeps me out, but right before the accident there was a voice in my head that was telling me to go straight instead of turning right, which is my normal route. After turning right, I got into the accident. I used to work in a building on a hospital campus, and sometimes at night. Across from my desk were glass panels for a TV room. The building would be pretty empty at night and only lit by 2 lamps. I remember sitting there one evening and glancing over at the glass panel to see legs walking by, reflected in the glass, but no actual person. Gave me chills. My buddies and I were exploring an abandoned building and a knife went flying through an open door and stuck into the wall. We were all convinced it was a ghost because we had already been through the whole building and didn't see anyone. Had to be a bum or something though. One time I was on a local trail with my mom and brother. The trail is on what used to be an old farm. The only things left from those days is just a small old family cemetery. It only has a few plots and it's probably a good 50 feet away from the trail. At the time my mom was really into taking pictures, so we went back there and took some of the graves. We get back on the trail and my mom runs into one of her friends and their kids. While our moms were talking, the kid starts telling his brother about the graves back there and they walk back to them. One of the kids picks up a piece of fallen fruit from a nearby tree. He throws it at the mostly hollow dead tree that one of the headstones is leaning against, and all of a sudden a swarm of wasps just attacks this kid. But literally only him. I was in my house sleeping. I woke up in the middle of the night with my door open. Even though I had my door closed, I hear silverware or some sort of metal clanging noise. So I freak out and slowly leave my room to my kitchen, and my silverware drawer was open and all of the silverware was mixed up. I don't believe in ghosts, but when I was 6 or 7, I saw what I can't explain. I was heading downstairs when I saw Klansman staring directly at me. We stared at each other for the longest 3 seconds ever. I just froze. I closed my eyes and opened it back up and it was gone. I got my older sister to look downstairs and no one was down there. At work we have a bell that the kitchen staff press to alert the bar staff that food is on the pass. Sometimes at night when the kitchen is closed and I am shutting down the bar, the bell will randomly ring. Gives me shivers every time. Me and my friends went down to a fenced-off area near one of my friend's house. Something important to remember is that we lived near the freeway. As we looked through the fence we saw a broken down house. There is some sort of thick forest, so it was pretty hard to see. We decided to investigate, so there was one team that stayed a distance away from the fence, and the other team, the one I was on, had to climb over the fence and check it out. We had walkie-talkies with us but only 2, so both teams got one walkie-talkie. The other team stayed at my house while we got closer and closer to the fence. 2 of our members had screamed, "Teresa face." There was a face. I remember seeing a brief glimpse of the thing, quite alien-like as I recalled it. We all ran back. They later described that it had long features and white skin. Shaken, we all decided not to mess with it. I was 8 at the time. Fast forward to when I'm 9 and I hear the story of how my primary teacher's sister died. She hung herself in a shack next to the freeway a year ago. It had been the anniversary of her passing. I didn't know for sure if that was the same shack, so I never told my friends who had explored the place with us. But setting was eerily similar to the place we had explored a year prior. This one isn't so creepy. I've always been told I have a sort of connection to the other side. While at a church in which mediums, people who can contact spirit realms, come in and speak to people when a spirit comes forward. I saw what looked like cigarette smoke coming from the floor, brushed it off. Later, before we left, I was in the car ready to leave when I saw the same smoke. My mother's friend mentioned I could have been witnessing a spirit. Second incident was a couple of weeks after my grandmother died. I woke up at about 2 a.m.ish and could smell my nana's house. I felt compelled to get out of bed and into my mother's room, where I just stood at the end of the bed for a couple of minutes, all the while just having such a weird energy around me. Might just be my imagination, but who knows.